First contact deception. The Arbiter-class consortium vessel cast a shadow over Manhattan that stretched 20 blocks. From her vantage point, on the United Nations observation deck, Dr. Mira Khatri watched the alien ship's surface ripple with iridescent patterns. 6 days since first contact, and the world still couldn't decide between celebration and panic. Magnificent, isn't it? The voice belonged to Dr. Victor Chen, her research partner. 3 miles of advanced technology that traveled 17 light-years to find us. Mira didn't share his enthusiasm. They found us suspiciously fast, don't you think? 17 light-years in 6 months after detecting our first deep space transmission. Below them, crowds gathered to witness the consortium delegation's arrival for the 3rd day of diplomatic exchanges. The aliens called themselves the Echelon, a council of 12 species united by technological advancement and galactic stewardship. Ambassador Thexel claims they've been monitoring us for decades, Victor said, adjusting his glasses, waiting for us to reach a suitable development threshold. And now they're here to help. Mira's tone made it clear what she thought of that notion. Her phone vibrated. A message from their research site in the Gobi Desert. Artifact is responding to consortium energy signatures. Unprecedented activity. Return immediately. We need to go, she said, showing Victor the message. As they turned to leave, the observation deck doors slid open. Ambassador Thexel floated in, his translucent exoskeleton pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. 2 human diplomats followed deferentially. Dr. Khatri. Thexel's voice resonated without apparent vocal cords. Your departure seems hasty. The technology exchange presentation begins momentarily. Mira forced a smile. A research emergency. My apologies, Ambassador. Thexel's inner light flickered in a pattern her translation implant interpreted as amusement. Ah, human priorities. So focused on the immediate. When one has existed for thousands of years, one develops perspective. How fortunate for you, Mira replied, edging toward the exit. Before you depart, Thexel extended a crystalline appendage, offering a small device, a token. Direct neural interface technology. Primitive by our standards, but centuries beyond your current capabilities. Victor reached for it, but Mira caught his arm. That's extraordinarily generous, Ambassador. May I ask what you're receiving in exchange? The alien's colors shifted to deep azure. The joy of uplifting promising species, Doctor. The consortium has guided hundreds of civilizations through their technological adolescence. And these civilizations, they all thrive within the consortium now. Those with the capacity to contribute, yes. Thexel's lights pulsed in a pattern the translator couldn't interpret. Safe travels, Doctor. I sense our paths will cross again soon. In the elevator, Victor examined the device. Thexel had pressed into his hand despite Mira's reluctance. You were rude to him. And you're naive. Nothing is free, Victor. Especially from beings that call themselves our evolutionary superiors. They've offered medical technology that could end cancer, clean energy systems. And in return, they're scanning every inch of our planet, collecting data on our biology, our resources, our defense systems. The elevator reached the ground floor. Did you notice how they keep referring to us as promising and developing, like we're children? Victor pocketed the alien device. Compared to them, maybe we are. 12 hours later, their research plane touched down at a remote airstrip in Mongolia. Dr. Eliza Okafor, head of their archaeological team, met them in a dust-covered jeep. The artifact's energy signature has increased tenfold, she said as they sped across the desert. And there's something else. It's producing data now. Actual readable outputs. Mira gripped the dashboard as the jeep bounced over rocky terrain. What kind of data? That's the thing. It's in multiple languages. Some human, some not. Sanskrit, Proto-Sumerian, and patterns that match nothing in our linguistic database. Their research site came into view, a cluster of white tents surrounding a massive excavation. What had once been dismissed as an unusual geological formation was now recognized as something far more significant. A structure of unknown origin buried beneath the Gobi Desert for an estimated 200,000 years. The site's security had tripled since their discovery 3 months ago. What began as a routine geological survey had turned into the most classified archaeological project on Earth, at least until the consortium arrived, and made the classification somewhat moot. Inside the main research tent, Mira approached the artifact. A metallic obelisk 14 feet tall, covered in symbols that shifted and rearranged themselves when observed. Its surface shimmered with a subtle energy field that defied analysis. "Show me the new outputs," she said, pulling on specialized gloves designed to interact with the artifact's reactive surface. Dr. Okafor brought up the readings on her tablet. It started right when the consortium ships entered orbit. First just energy fluctuations, then this. The screen displayed scrolling symbols, mathematical formulas, and diagrams. Mira recognized elements of ancient human languages interspersed with complex equations far beyond current human mathematics. "It's like it's trying to communicate," Victor murmured. "But why now? After 200,000 years of silence." Mira's eyes narrowed as she studied the patterns. It wasn't triggered by the consortium's arrival. It was responding to them. She turned to Okafor. "Has anyone reported our findings to the UN contact team?" "No. You issued strict orders. Nothing leaves this site without your approval." "Good." Mira approached the obelisk, placing her gloved hand on its surface. The symbols beneath her palm rearranged themselves, flowing like liquid metal. "Because I don't think this is alien technology. At least, not in the way we understand alien." Victor scoffed. "It's 200,000 years old, Mira. Humans were barely using stone tools. What if that's what we're meant to believe?" She pressed her palm harder against the surface, and the obelisk responded, the symbols flowing faster, converging toward her touch. "The consortium representatives keep talking about uplifting us, about humanity's promising potential, but they seem awfully interested in specific locations on Earth, all corresponding to anomalous archaeological sites." A humming sound filled the tent as the obelisk's energy field intensified. Symbols began projecting into the air around them, forming three-dimensional models of DNA strands, star systems, and mathematical equations. "They're not explorers finding us for the first time," Mira whispered as understanding dawned. "They're looking for something they lost." The projections suddenly converged, forming a globe of Earth. 12 points illuminated across its surface, each marking the location of a major archaeological mystery: Göbekli Tepe, the Nazca Lines, the underwater structures off Japan, and 9 others. Their current location pulsed brighter than the rest. "It's a network," Mira breathed. "A global network of whatever these are." Victor stepped closer, his scientific skepticism warring with the evidence before him. "If you're suggesting prehistoric humans built this, I'm suggesting humans are much more than what we've been told, maybe even much more than what we've told ourselves." Mira watched as new symbols appeared, forming what looked like genetic sequences. "And I think the consortium knows it." The obelisk suddenly pulsed with blinding light. Mira felt a searing pain in her palm, as the symbols beneath her hand seemed to flow up her arm like liquid metal, disappearing beneath her skin. She tried to pull away but found herself frozen in place as information flooded her consciousness. Images, knowledge, memories that weren't hers yet somehow were. She saw Earth as it once was, a world of impossible cities, orbital rings, and technology that manipulated the fabric of reality itself. She saw humans commanding energies beyond comprehension, traveling between stars as easily as walking between rooms. And she saw the creation of the beings now calling themselves the consortium, engineered life forms designed for specific purposes, seated across dozens of worlds, their memories altered to forget their origins. When the light faded, Mira collapsed. Victor caught her before she hit the ground. "Mira, what happened? Are you all right?" She opened her eyes, which now held a subtle geometric pattern in their irises, an external manifestation of the change within her mind. When she spoke, her voice carried new certainty. We need to activate the other nodes, quickly, before they remember what they're really looking for. What are you talking about? Who needs to remember? Mira looked up at the tense ceiling, knowing consortium ships were already moving into position above them, drawn by the energy surge. Our children, she said. The ones who've forgotten they were made, not born. The ones coming home. The awakening. The Consortium Emergency Council convened aboard the command vessel Eternal Vigilance. Representatives of all 12 senior species gathered in the holographic chamber as Ambassador Thexel presented his findings. The energy signature detected in the Gobi region matches nothing in our archives, he reported, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with agitation. But it activated similar responses from 11 other locations across the planet. Admiral Jen of the Protectorate Forces manipulated the tactical display with her 6-fingered hands. Our scanners indicate the human female, Dr. Katri, has somehow interfaced with the technology. Her biometric readings are changing. This complicates our extraction schedule, said Arbiter Voss, the hulking reptilian representative of the Dominion species. The humans were supposed to remain ignorant while we harvested the artifacts. Thexel's colors darkened. There's something else. Analysis of the energy pattern shows similarities to our founder technology, specifically the Genesis matrices. The chamber fell silent. The Genesis matrices were the most sacred artifacts in consortium history, the mysterious devices that had allegedly given birth to each member species on their respective worlds. Impossible, Arbiter Voss growled. The matrices predate all known civilizations. They are gifts from the architects. And yet, Thexel countered, the correlation cannot be dismissed. Furthermore, deep analysis of Dr. Katri's genetic code, since her exposure shows anomalous sequences that appear in fragmentary form across all consortium species. Admiral Zhen's pupils narrowed to slits. Are you suggesting these primitive humans have some connection to our sacred technology? I am suggesting, Thexel said carefully, that we may have significantly misunderstood Earth's role in galactic history. At that moment, alarms blared across the ship. On the tactical display, energy signatures erupted from all 12 locations on Earth's surface. The signatures combined, creating a planetary energy field that disrupted all consortium scanning technology. We've lost remote access to our ground teams, reported a tactical officer. Something is interfering with our communication systems. Deploy all available forces, ordered Admiral Jen. Secure those artifacts immediately. In the Gobi Desert, Mira stood inside a newly revealed chamber beneath the obelisk. The wall before her displayed a real-time map of Earth, showing all 12 nodes activating in sequence. Victor and Dr. Okafor watched in amazement as the ancient technology responded to Mira's commands she issued with the confidence of someone who had built the system herself. How are you doing this? Victor asked, his scientific worldview crumbling by the second. I remember, Mira said simply. Her fingers danced across control surfaces that responded to her touch. Not everything yet, but enough. Remember what? Okafor pressed. What we were, what we did. Mira manipulated the controls, and the chamber expanded, revealing vast machinery that had lain dormant for millennia. Humanity didn't evolve on Earth, Victor. We returned here. This planet was our sanctuary, our hiding place. Hiding from what? The hunters, entities from outside our dimension attracted to advanced technology. They destroyed thousands of civilizations across multiple galaxies. When they found us, we were the most advanced species in the known universe. We had two choices, fight and die, or hide and survive. The machinery hummed to life around them, systems reactivating after an unimaginable slumber. Project Dormancy, Mira continued, the knowledge flowing through her genetically recovered memories. We seeded selected species across hundreds of worlds, each engineered with specific capabilities and deliberate limitations to prevent them from developing technologies that would attract the hunters. Then we came here, to Earth, A world we had terraformed ages before and enacted the final phase. Which was? Victor asked. We forgot, deliberately. We modified our own genetics, suppressed our technological knowledge, and hid ourselves among the natural evolution of this world. The artifacts, the nodes, were left as keys, designed to reactivate only when specific conditions were met. Dr. Okafor looked skeptical. You're saying humans are millions of years old as a species, that we once commanded technology beyond anything we can imagine. Why would we choose to forget that? Because knowledge is detectable, Mira replied. Conscious awareness of certain principles creates quantum resonances the hunters can track across vast distances. But genetic memory, that they couldn't detect. We hid our knowledge in our DNA, accessible only when needed. On the chamber's displays, they watched consortium ships descending toward the other node locations. Mira's hands moved with increasing urgency across the controls. They don't remember either, she said. The Echelon, the Dominion, the Protectorate, all the consortium species, they were our greatest achievement. Artificial species designed to steward the galaxy while we slept. But something went wrong. Their memories were altered. Instead of protectors, they became collectors, seeking the technology of what they call the architects, without realizing they're searching for their own creators. Victor struggled to process the implications. So these advanced aliens who think they're helping us are our children, Mira finished, created by us billions of years ago. The irony would be amusing if it weren't so dangerous. She activated a final sequence, and the entire chamber illuminated with blinding light. They can't be allowed to recover our technology before we do. Some of them might not accept the truth. Above them, the consortium command ship detected the energy surge. Ambassador Thexel felt something stir within his consciousness. Memory fragments long suppressed by countless generations of selective conditioning. All forces, hold position, he ordered suddenly, countermanding Admiral Jen's deployment. Explain yourself, Ambassador, the Admiral demanded. Thexel's bioluminescent patterns formed complex sequences never before seen by his colleagues. I'm experiencing recognition. These energy patterns, they're activation keys, genetic keys designed for. His inner light pulsed with revelation as dormant programming within his artificial biology awakened. We must not interfere. We were never meant to return until they call us home. This is treason, growled Arbiter Voss. The artifacts are consortium property by right of salvage. They're not artifacts, Thexel replied, his voice resonating with newfound authority. They're beacons, and they weren't built by some vanished precursor race. He turned to face the council, his inner light now pulsing with patterns that triggered recognition in the other representatives, patterns encoded in their very creation. They were built by them, the humans, our creators. On Earth, the activation sequence completed. The global network of nodes connected, creating a planetary field that awakened dormant genetic memories in humans worldwide. People everywhere experienced sudden insights, spontaneous understanding of principles their conscious minds had never learned. In the chamber beneath the Gobi Desert, Mira accessed the central communication system. Her message would be carefully calibrated, enough information to begin humanity's awakening without triggering psychological trauma from too rapid assimilation. What happens now? Victor asked. Mira smiled as the ancient systems around them hummed with renewed purpose. The displays showed consortium ships withdrawing to a respectful distance as recognition protocols activated within their command systems. Now we remember who we are, what we built. And then, she looked up as a communication request appeared on the display. The ID signature identified Ambassador Thexel, but the protocol he was using wasn't consortium standard. It was much, much older. We welcome our children home. The signal connected, and Thexel's form appeared before them. His bioluminescent patterns had changed, now displaying sequences Mira somehow recognized. When he spoke, it wasn't through the translator, but in a language that hadn't been spoken in millions of years, a language she suddenly understood perfectly. "Architect," he said, addressing Mira with reverence. "The Guardians await instruction." Mira responded in the same ancient tongue, words she had never learned yet somehow knew. "The dormancy ends. The cycle renews. It is time to rebuild what was lost." Around the world, humanity began to awaken to its true heritage, not as a young species taking its first steps into the cosmos, but as ancient giants who had once commanded the stars, sleeping giants who had seeded the galaxy with life of their own design, now rising once more from their long protective slumber. The hunters were still out there, somewhere beyond the dimensional veil. But this time, humanity wouldn't face them alone. This time, they would stand with the children they had created, in a family reunion billions of years in the making.